YouTube, welcome to another video. Shout out to Assyrium, I think I'm saying that right, on Instagram for the particular prompt. So we're going to be talking about how to phrase tarot questions, and I think this might be a bit different to what people might expect this video to be, because I'm actually going to propose that there isn't really a wrong way to ask tarot questions. There's only really a wrong way to interpret the answer. Now that might seem really strange on the surface, but hear me out. Let's take some random questions, all phrased differently right now. Example, when will Jack get back to me? You'd think you can't do that with tarot, right? But actually tarot can be used to tell time. And if it's really not going to happen, you're going to get a card like death. You're going to get a card like the Tower, the World, like this thing is complete or not going to happen. Whereas if it's going to happen, you're going to get a time-based card. So maybe you'll get a certain suit that represents a week, a day, a month, or a year. Or maybe you'll get a certain number and then it turns out it's that many hours or something along those lines. Another question that people might ask is, why am I not getting this thing? And whilst that's not a great question to ask based on the fact that it's not very productive, you're still going to get an answer. So maybe, why am I not doing so well in my exams? And then you might get the Fool because you've not been studying enough. Or you might get, for instance, Six of Wands because you're not recognizing what you already know and you doubt yourself so much. A completely different question to that might be, who's my ideal lover? And you get a card like the Knight of Cups because they're charming, they're idyllic, they're a bit of a dreamer. Or again, a completely different question. You might even ask something along the lines of, who am I meant to be? And you get the card the Hierophant because you're meant to be a spiritual leader. There are ways that you can make pretty much every question in tarot work. I genuinely can't think of a single question, no matter how badly it's phrased, where tarot couldn't possibly give you an answer. The problem comes from when we try to interpret those cards, in my personal opinion. Of course, this isn't my personal opinion, and there's definitely going to be people who disagree with me. I've read a million posts about how not to phrase tarot, and I would argue that, yeah, that's fair, but if you phrase tarot badly, a question badly, tarot is just going to throw you back a bad answer. And that is to say, if I was to sit here and say, oh, why am I failing in my exams when I've clearly done no preparation, done no studying, tarot's going to be mean. Tarot's going to be like, you don't do anything, you're wasting your time, you're not paying attention. I'm going to get cards which outline that. Or if I ask, what will this job hold for me? Again, it's fortune telling. Like, that's something you can do with tarot. There is no question which you can't necessarily ask tarot. There are just questions which are better to ask tarot, which tend to be descriptive ones. And that brings me on to the point which I am actually making in this video, which is there's just a wrong way to interpret cards. How many people have pulled the Lovers and immediately assumed that a soulmate is coming or that some random spirit wants to marry them because it's the Lovers? If you don't know, the Lovers is not always about finding a partner. Or equally, how many people have pulled the Tower card and assumed, oh my god, something terrible is going to happen to me, oh my god, like something really, really bad, I'm just going to have a fall, it's going to be absolutely atrocious, and then it's actually been that they needed that thing to happen, or they needed that reshift, or it was their worrying and their inability to see their own weak foundations which actually caused this sense of falling. How many times have we heard the horror stories of tarot interpretations where, as a more adept reader, you probably know what the card was really trying to say, but you didn't or you weren't there to offer your interpretation, or it really just wasn't your, well, place to offer it. This is what really matters when it comes to tarot questions. You can ask any question you want to, providing you have the tarot knowledge to actually understand what's being said. And so with this video, with this kind of section of what I'm talking about, I want to encourage you to ask tarot questions without assuming the answers. So this can be really hard, and this is where I have some tips for you. And I'm going to start with those tips because I think it's better to start with the routine and then understand what I'm saying. When you do tarot, when you next do a question, write down what you got, maybe even take photos. Write some brief ideas of what those mean, and maybe reach out to a friend or read a guidebook or read an online resource about the cards. Then come back to what you've written and write some more. So maybe something entirely different. So to take a random example from the top of my head, let's ask, in what way can I make Jeffrey fall in love with me? I'm deliberately trying to come up with terrible questions if you can't tell. So in what way can I make Jeffrey fall in love with me? And I get the card. Again, let's think of something absolutely terrible. I get the card 6 of Swords. 6 of Swords, surely that doesn't make any sense. The question's wrong, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, the question is an absolutely terrible question, but tarot has given you an answer. And the answer is that you need to let go because this isn't moving forward. Think about the 6 of Swords. It's all about letting go of baggage, isn't it? And ultimately being in a position where you are vulnerable, weak, fragile, and you need to move off of this quite dangerous land in order to move forward with yourself and your life. It is quite a brutal card when you have a brutal situation. Most people are not going to be immediately thinking of that because most people are going to be, when asking a tarot question, looking for their tarot answer, which by default of us being humans who often have bias, we are going to be looking for a certain kind of answer. So like with the question, I asked, how can I make Jeffrey fall in love with me? And if I was to get the 6 of Swords and I'm not an adept tarot reader, I'm going to think, I have to hide my baggage. I have to let go of my baggage and then Jeffrey will love me. However, the reason I've encouraged you to analyze it, then analyze it again from a different perspective, is because tarot doesn't always answer your question. It tells you what it thinks you should actually know about your question. You've got to think about tarot like a Virgo or a Capricorn. Just because you ask them a question doesn't mean they're going to give you the answer that you want. It can mean they're going to give you the answer they think you need. And that is very much how tarot works. So you can ask tarot any question you want, but it's how you interpret the answer which is going to make all the difference. So why would Anna backstab me like that? That's our new question. And the card that we're going to get for why would Anna backstab me like that is going to be, let's think of a difficult one that doesn't make sense. 7 of Cups. So I've asked tarot why Anna has backstabbed me. Again, probably, I mean, you can ask that to tarot, but you maybe should not ask tarot emotionally fueled questions without being able to fully understand what might come back, because tarot decks don't always like that. However, 7 of Cups immediately, that's not going to make sense to a more novice tarot reader. They're going to be like, dreams? What? Like, why would she dreamt of doing it? It happened in a dream? What the 7 of Cups is going to be saying in this situation is that you might be being a little bit delusional. Anna probably didn't backstab you. Anna probably didn't notice that she backstabbed you. Anna most likely was just off on her own, doing her own thing, and you may have read too much into that situation. Especially if we then have a card like the 10 of Wands, which suggests that all of this energy you're putting into this situation is fruitless and you should probably turn around. What I am illustrating in these 2 examples is that you can use tarot cards for, like I said, any question, no matter how terrible your question is. But the key is not to necessarily immediately phrase the cards in your question. What you want to do is you want to evaluate everything the card has to offer and then consider what it could be saying about the question. Now, here's the key difference that I would personally use. Again, like I've said, not everyone's going to agree with me here, and that's perfectly fine. However, what I would say is that it's the difference between thinking that tarot answers your questions and thinking that tarot comments on them. Now, I myself usually do not ask tarot questions. I bring a topic to tarot and I see what tarot has to say. And that is because this is how I view tarot. Tarot is always going to give me an answer. It just won't always be the one that I'm looking for or one that I necessarily want to hear. So I have to be open to all of that perspective and all of the possibilities. The best way that I can do that is by addressing topics of tarot rather than questions. Because when we come in with a question, we expect an answer. But if we haven't phrased something very well, the answer isn't really going to make sense. Whereas if we avoid any form of, emotional bias or vested interest, which could be swaying how we view the cards. So if I think Anna's backstabbed me, I'm most likely going to be finding a reason for that in the cards, even if the cards don't think that she backstabbed me at all, for instance. Instead, what I can do is actually think, okay, tarot, can you give me some cards about what I need to know about this situation, or what you view from the situation, ancestors, guides, whoever might be helping you? This is an open-ended question, and that is the best way to address tarot, because it gives you all of that scope for whoever may want to say. And so that is what I would say when it comes to how to ask tarot questions. At the end of the day, I really can't think of a single question that tarot couldn't find a way to answer for you, even if it doesn't want to answer. Because like I said, if it doesn't want to answer, you're just going to get some real bad cards which are like, no, stop, turn back. Or if the answer is, more complex, then there's going to be more cards. Tarot is a really complex, really diverse system, and it's not so much that you can ask a wrong question, although some questions shouldn't be asked, of course, but rather that you can interpret the cards wrong, which could be a scary thing to think. But as long as you are open to everything they could be saying for you, commenting on of the situation, then you should be fine. And if you would like to know more about how to kind of become a more adept tarot reader, you can check out my Leveling Up Tarot series, where I talk about some of the more in-depth meanings of cards. I am working on it and making it longer. Hopefully it's going to be more in the folder soon, but go have a look for now if you want to. But at the end of the day, just remember, don't assume that tarot is going to be answering a question how you expect it to. Because sometimes tarot has a brain of its own, a mind of its own, and it doesn't think your question should be answered. So it's going to be giving you advice or a critique based on that. So rather than asking tarot to answer your question, ask tarot to comment on your question and see how that goes for you. But bye for now, guys.